Well, it's not every day that a tweet thread from an anonymous account called Meatball Times serves as the jumping off point for our daily cancellation segment, but this is that day. Meatball went somewhat viral over the weekend with a lengthy diatribe about the need for men to build emotional intelligence, quote unquote. And his rantings are only worthy of consideration because they unintentionally illustrate a very important point about the nature of masculinity and the challenges that men face in modern culture. Now, this person's not trying to illustrate that point. In fact, he's reaching desperately for something like the opposite point. But in the attempt, he inadvertently provides a learning opportunity for all of us. So let's read it. Quote, I've been feeling very undernourished in my male friendships recently. I think there's something just kind of wrong with the default mode of male socialization/communication, something men aren't taught about relating to people. For instance, I've known this guy for 15 years. I was his best man at his wedding. I told him recently about a suicidal episode of someone I love recently, and I also a close family friend lying about having cancer for 2 years and how it was killing me, crying. My male friend's response to me crying on his sofa, dude, I'm sorry, that's crazy. What topping do you want on your pizza? What the F? Friends for 15 years? This is his response? Not all guys are like this, but could you imagine literally any woman doing this? I realized several years ago that I could spend hours talking to my male friends and not learn a single thing about them. I always am the one to ask personal questions. And when I ask guys about their divorce or whatever, a solid 1/3 of them like shrug. Hello? Now the diatribe continues from here, but let's pause to consider a few points. First of all, I'm trying to imagine how I might react if a guy came up to me and told me that he feels undernourished by my friendship. I think I'd probably say a bunch of things that I can't say here, but the basic gist would be that I'm glad that I'm not nourishing you. What am I, a dairy cow? Like, why are you looking to me for nourishment, you freak? I can never hang out with you again after a comment like that. Now that I know that you're sitting over there expecting nourishment. Although I guess being told by a friend that I'm not nourishing him isn't the worst thing in the world. That's the second worst thing. The worst thing is if he came up to me and said, thank you for your friendship, Matt. It's very nourishing. That would be the worst. It's like, I didn't mean to be nourishing you. I don't know what's going on here, but this is something's gone wrong here. In either case, this is not how men speak to each other. And it certainly makes one suspect that the author of this thread is not a man at all. By the language he's using, you'd think that he's like a 24-year-old female HR representative who graduated from NYU with a major in queer poetry or whatever. And maybe that's the case. But let's take him at his word for the purposes of this conversation and assume that he really is a dude who speaks like that and yet somehow still gets invited over for pizza night with the boys, which, again, is hard to imagine. So, okay then. Tells us that he went to his friend's house and starts crying on his couch. His friend offers him a quick supportive word and then tries to get back to ordering the pizza. Meatball wants us to see his friend as the bad guy in this exchange, even though he's the one not only crying like a girl on his friend's couch, but even worse, doing it while his friend is in the middle of trying to order the pizza. So Meatball's committed multiple violations of the man code in this story. Violation number 1, crying in front of another man. Violation number 2, crying in front of another man at his house. Violation number 3, distracting a man while he's trying to order pizza. Now, the friend, we can assume he's married, so he already has to deal with that sort of thing with his wife. Women are infamous for this kind of thing. They're infamous for not staying focused and on message while food is being ordered. Like the other day, I was trying to order Chinese. I asked my wife, like, what do you want from the Chinese place? She launches into like a 7-minute story that's completely irrelevant to the Chinese. I'm like, I'm sitting here. We can talk about that, but do you want General Tso's? What do you want? What are we doing here? We got to get the food handled first, and then we can have a conversation. And now this guy, he has to deal with the same sort of thing when he invites dudes over for pizza. Like, it's unconscionable to put a man in that position. I'm sorry you had a loved one who faked cancer. That's weird, but like, what exactly does that have to do with Papa John's? I don't understand why you're bringing this up right now. And what does Meatball want from his friend here? The guy said he was sorry. Okay, check. He said it was crazy. Check, it is crazy. What else is there to say? Especially a story like that. Like, that's what I don't know what else to say. A loved one faked cancer. that's super weird, man. Sorry that happened. What kind of cancer did he fake? Like, what do you want, questions? But he acknowledged your sob story, he offered condolences, and then he tried to redirect back to the pizza instead of letting you indulge any further in your pity party. That's what men do. It's how men relate to each other. We don't wallow together in our emotions. In fact, if I have any criticism of the friend in this exchange, it's that he didn't make fun of the other guy for crying. That's the only place where he dropped the ball. And I can only take solace in the assumption that the next time they hang out, if there is a next time, the friend will find an opportunity to make a joke about Meatball's crying fit. And then to make a joke about it every time he sees him from here until they die. And it doesn't have to be anything clever, by the way. I mean, just as soon as he sits on the couch, just say like, hey, you're not going to start crying again, are you? Something simple like that, just to make sure that you fulfill your duty to give him crap for that, because that's what friends do, at least male friends. Are you still struggling with back taxes or unfiled returns? This year, the IRS is escalating collections by adding 20,000 new agents and sending millions of demand letters. Now that tax season is over, collection season has begun. Handling this alone can be a huge mistake and cost you thousands of dollars. In these challenging times, your best offense is with Tax Network USA. Upon signing up, Tax Network USA will immediately contact the IRS to secure a protection order, ensuring that aggressive collection activities such as garnishments, levies, or property seizures are halted, providing you with peace of mind and financial security. If you haven't filed in a while and you need amended returns or are missing records, Tax Network USA expert tax preparers will update all your filings, eliminating the risk of IRS enforcement. Tax Network USA will evaluate your financials and create a settlement strategy to reduce or eliminate your tax debt, putting it behind you for good. Don't wait any longer and call my friends at Tax Network USA today. For a complimentary consultation, call 1-800-245-6000 or visit tnusa.com/Walsh. That's 1-800-245-6000 or visit tnusa.com/Walsh today. Now, Meatball relates this experience as proof that men are emotionally deficient, but it's not proof that men are emotionally deficient. It's proof that men are men. Men are not women. They are different, not deficient. They relate to each other differently. They express themselves differently. They have a different way of being and acting in the world because men are men. We are not women. Meatball sees that as a defect, and he's not alone. The only reason we're talking about this post by some random guy is that it typifies a prevailing attitude in our culture. This has been the popular consensus among elites in our society, the philosophy that drives most of our institutions for decades now. Men are broken, they say, because they are too much like men and not enough like women. And the way to fix men is to make them like women. A woman is a kind of perfected man by this way of thinking, which, by the way, explains why trans ideology is so important to these people, but that's a thread we can follow another day. But it's all nonsense, of course. It's extremely harmful nonsense. There is nothing wrong with how men in general relate to each other and express their emotions. We are more stoic. We are the more emotionally reserved sex. That's what we've always been. It's how we're naturally inclined. It's how we're made. It's also how society needs us to be. Okay, society cannot properly function if everyone is dwelling on their emotions all the time. Okay, then no pizza would ever get ordered. So some of us, about half of us, need to be able to shoulder our emotional burdens quietly. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need support and friendship. It just means that support and friendship are different for us. Male friendships tend to be less intense, they tend to be more relaxed, less needy, less demanding. That's not the wrong way to approach friendships. It's just a different way than how women approach them. You know, I have friends that I've known for 30 years, and these days I see them once a year, maybe twice at most. There are years we go by where I don't see them at all. We never talk on the phone. We might text a few times over the year, usually during football season. I still consider them to be very good friends, and when I see them, it's just like old times. We also spend very little time catching up on each other's personal lives whenever we do see each other. And this is something that, you know, my wife doesn't understand. She doesn't understand how I can still consider those guys friends when I so rarely see or speak to them. So if I say, oh, you know, friend, she'll say, oh yeah, when's the last time you talked to him? I don't know, 2021 maybe? So to her, that's like, it's impossible. You can't, doesn't make any sense. She doesn't understand how, when I do see and speak to them, we don't end up gabbing the whole time about all the things that happened in our personal lives since we last saw each other. And that's because if my wife goes several weeks, let alone months, without having any contact with somebody she considers a friend, it's like it's a problem. Okay, it's a sign that something has gone wrong. And when they finally do talk again, they'll need to have like a heart-to-heart about the fact that they weren't talking before. So the fact of them not talking has to be a thing that they talk about before they can talk about anything else. And they'll talk about that, and tears might be shed, and it'll be a whole thing. And they're women. This is what women do. And that's fine for women. It's healthy for women. But it's not healthy to insist on that kind of behavior in men. Here's how Meatball wraps up his thread. Quote, I mostly just pity men at the not sure how I feel about my divorce levels of emotional intelligence. They're not dumb, they're confused. They lack the tools to introspect. They were never taught. The emotions are just going to sit in the pressure cooker in their heart, maybe forever. Society tells men to suppress their feelings. Women demand go to therapy, but female modes of expression are alienating to men. All the other men in your life are just as confused because if talking about the NBA isn't helping, they're out of ideas. No wonder guys feel nothing. Where can men go to learn how to feel things and support each other? Fraternal orders like the Masons or Elks, dead. Church religion, dead. Strong, vulnerable men don't exist in media. Clubs, third spaces, military, dead. Men unable to feel their feelings lived confused lives, inflicting others, especially women, with the burden of feeling things for them or compensating for their total lack of self-awareness. We need dedicated spaces for men to build emotional intelligence. Where are they? Now, he's right. Many of the spaces he mentioned are dead. Male spaces are largely dead precisely because they all became feminized. Now, he sees the feminization of male spaces as the solution, when in fact it's exactly the problem. Elk lodges, bowling clubs, cigar lounges. I mean, there are still cigar lounges, thank God. But for the most part, none of these traditionally male spaces were ever designed to help men build emotional intelligence or learn how to feel things, okay? Your grandpa, whoever, never went to the Elk Lodge because he wanted to learn how to feel things. These were designed as places where men could be how they are without any womanly lectures. But now there's nowhere to go to escape the womanly lectures. Every space has been overtaken by scolding women and men who act like scolding women. Every space has to cater to women. That's the world we live in now. There is no place that's allowed to not cater to women. The let boys be boys philosophy is dead. It's deader than the lodges and the bowling clubs. Replaced with a very different mindset, which is now make boys be girls. And some men, like our friend Meatball, have taken that call very much to heart. And that is why they are all today canceled. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.